Illini Nation? It's your man in the middle, Deon Thomas, bringing you nothing but the best as always, whether it's journalists, players, coaches, bringing you all the top information that I can for the Illini good. And tonight, we got another great, my man. Everybody follows him on Twitter. I thought I had a lot of followers. He's doubled my followers up. He's a recruiting analyst for the Illini guys. He's a writer for the Dispatch, covers Illinois basketball. And when I need information, he's my go-to guy. We got my man, Kendric Price. KP, how you doing today, baby?
Not bad, Mr. Thomas. Thanks for having me, man. What a great introduction. I tell you, I couldn't ask for better when I tell you that.
Well, yeah, hey, the invoice is in the mail, big dog. Invoice is in the mail.
I love it.
I truly appreciate you joining us tonight, man. I am a big fan of all that you do, not just for the Illini guys, but even before they came into be, you have done a tremendous job of a tremendous and fair job of covering Illinois sports, man. And I know, as that, like I said, that 12K people you got following you behind, and one of them's me, Illini Nation. So if you ain't following them, you better go on Kendric Price for Twitter, man, because he's giving all the lowdown. But no, KP, it's just a great pleasure of mine to have you on here, man, because you know the lay of the land, brother.
Thanks, Deon. I'll tell you what, I've been at this for a long time, about 18 years, and I started out with a little free newspaper, and then all of a sudden a big national company called me and asked me to do it, and then the floodgates opened up and things just worked out. I was just lucky to be the right guy in the right spot at the right time, I guess. So I really love what I do. It's great. The fans are great. The university is great. They treat me nice. So, I'm enjoying this ride because when I was younger, I was a guy begging for information, calling everybody for information. Now people are calling me. So it's really cool how this turned out.
Well, I'll tell you, as I mentioned earlier, I enjoy watching you. I enjoy watching you. I enjoy listening to you, especially on your podcast. I enjoy following what you do, man. So you have seen all of this coming before a lot of people have seen it coming. You're in the practices, I have to say, more than I am. You're around this team, more than I am. So going into this season, all the changes we had and all the injuries that we didn't know if we were going to have or not, of course, but then Kofi was gone and we didn't know if he was coming back. What were your thoughts as we moved into the season, before we get into where we are right now?
I really had a lot of high hopes. You're right, Deon. I was able to attend probably 3 or 4 practices. And what I saw in practices, it was amazing. People, if I wish other people could have saw what I saw. Curbelo was a magician. He could have arguably said he was the best player on the floor at times. There was a number of basketball recruits there. Some of them have committed because of what they saw in practice. That tells you how good it was. And on paper, this team is talented. I think a lot of people are panicking because they've struggled. But, I know you said we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but, they haven't had a full roster, and they still don't have one. But looking at it on paper, you got, to me, the best college basketball player in the country, Kofi Cockburn. Once Curbelo settles in, he figures out his role and he gets, he understands what the new teammates are going to do and where they want the basketball. I'll give an example. Earlier in the year, Curbelo had 10 turnovers in a game. And, it's too bad because they weren't all his. There was a couple where I thought he threw a bounce pass to Luke Goody for a layup. Luke flared out for a jump shot. That's a turnover that Curbelo shouldn't have got, but it was his. So I just think if you look at a team, they have all the pieces down. They can shoot it, which you saw the other night against Notre Dame. They can rebound. And in you said in practices, I was impressed. But if I had one concern right now, is how they defend.
Yeah, and that's one thing that Brad Underwood is going to fix. And I think that part of that comes from when you don't have your full complement of players, even if it's practice. We haven't had our guys, all of the guys on the court at the same time to be able to fix some of those issues. But I want to touch on what you just mentioned. You talked about Andre Curbelo and some of the turnovers that he has had. I agree with you. A lot of it several of them in each game. The one we had the 10, and then he had 7 to follow that up. A lot of that is because, and I think you will agree with me, this young man sees things that other guys don't see on the court. So some of the times those balls will hit people in the chest, or they'll hit them in the hands, or they'll slide out of bounds simply because he reads something different. And that's not necessarily his fault. But when you're the point guard and you're the guy with the ball in your hands, my coach used to always say, Pat, the fault is to the passer and not to the catcher. But I think a lot of that goes back to those guys not being able to be on the court together. What's your take on that?
I'll tell you what, I'm glad to hear you say that because you're exactly right. Carmelo, I think, is a step ahead of everyone else. There was times when you go back to the Marquette game, he was trying to throw a lob pass to Omar Payne. Kofi would have got it. And just knowing your personnel, and I'll tell you this, I mean, I want every fan who's listening to this podcast, regardless of what you think of what Carmelo has done and what he's going forward. I had a NBA scout from the Dallas Mavericks call me, and he told me after the Marquette game that they didn't care about the turnovers because Carmelo is man enough and tough enough to take the shots and try to put the game on his shoulders. They know he's going to grow, and they know how good he is. That's why he was a preseason All-American. They like guys like that, Deon, because guys like that are who are willing to take the next step and to try to put the team on their back and to carry a team. That's special. I mean, and granted, he made a lot of mistakes, but he'll grow from it. So the scouts are still looking at him. I don't, I feel bad with him going with his injuries right now, but at the end of the day, he's a good player, and I know he wants to win games, and he is extremely happy to be an Illinois fan. And Illinois basketball player. I just hope the fans can understand and appreciate right now things are not going well for him. But at the end of the day, I think they will eventually. He's just too talented. He's working his 3-point shooting. His shot looks good, but he hasn't played enough to get the numbers up. So I think he'll be fine.
I agree with you 100%. And I've had some other guys come and tell me a lot of that same thing. One of the things I can say, in the Line Out Nation, listen to me when I say this, there are not a lot of guys that are willing to step up in the moment, to take that shot, to make that pass, to do those things. And that kid is. When I realized he was the truth, KP, is it happened last year when he was a freshman. And I can't remember which game it was, but he missed some free throws and then ended up missing a jump shot. I think it may have been the Ohio State loss in Champaign. And before Brian Barnhart and I wrapped up our post game, that kid was right back out on the court, taking the same exact shot that he missed, working on his free throws that he had missed. And that takes a lot. That shows a lot about who this kid is. So I'm with you on that, man. And I'm bullish on Andre Curbelo because I think once he's back from this injury, it's going to be full steam ahead. And one other thing you touched on that I noticed also in those games when the 3 games when Kofi was out, man, he was missing the big piece. He's so comfortable throwing the alley-oops or throwing the bounce passes or those wraparound passes to Kofi because he knows Kofi's going to catch it. And when you have a bunch of new guys that you're not used to playing with, I don't care how much you practice, because practice is not game speed. And that's where I think a lot of those issues came and poked their ugly heads in the door. But coming off those injuries, man, you're talking about the injuries. We've had him with the concussion, Trent with the shoulder and then the knee, multiple guys going down with the flu, man. And all this time, as you mentioned, you've been doing this for 20 plus. Have you seen the triage center like we have going on right now?
No. I mean, Coach Underwood said in his press conference the other day, he's been coaching for 35 years, and this has never, ever happened to him before. And people can't take it for granted. And, another one, Jacob Grandison, when they left Kansas City, he just showed up at practice. And I know people think that's coaches speak. It's true. I did a podcast with DeMonte last night, and he played in the Notre Dame game. You should have seen how bad he looked. I felt bad. It's hitting everybody. And I wouldn't be surprised if it gets to Kofi. I mean, right now, they've dodged a bullet, but it's just really unfortunate because I think some people have given up on him, but you can't, because I explained this the other day. If you know anything about cars and you take the alternator out, it's not going to run. And to function normally, you have to have the car running properly and all the pieces. You take away the best college basketball player, yes, that makes a difference. You take away any team starting point guard, that's going to make a difference. And with the illnesses and with all the injuries, and Austin Hutcherson, the poor guy, I mean, he can't catch a break. I thought he looked good out in Kansas City a couple of games, and then he came back here. He played the other night, and he had the flu, and he shouldn't have played, so he was sick. So I just wish people would understand that this is temporarily, and it won't last long. But when you're sick and these kids are out there gutting it out, I have to tip my hat to them because I've never seen anything like it. Other than Michigan State football, I mean, because I know they were missing 23 guys last week. But other than that, Deon, that's hard. It really is.
Oh, well, I've been through it, but never to this degree. I mean, to have so many players injured at the same time, ill at the same time is so strange, especially in this day of COVID, when you don't really know, what you're going to be dealing with from a day-to-day basis. But you were right on one thing. Illinois is 5-2, and I don't think it's just some of our followers that have gotten down on them. How could this team, you tell me that there's 25 teams in the nation better than the University of Illinois?
You know what's funny? You're right. There's a couple of national guys, and probably 5 years ago, I would have tweeted at them, but, I'm getting older and wiser because you're right. Some of those guys, they just passed the ball. Oh, Illinois is not that good, and so we're going to write them off. Again, tell me a college basketball player in college who can do what Kofi can do. There's not. And
No.
they're getting the ball to him in spots right now, and Cabello's not there. It's easy to jump off the bandwagon, and I think they're going to have to go out and they're going to have to beat somebody good again to prove where they belong and that they're there. But at the end of the day, I tell you what, I know a lot of teams wouldn't want to play Illinois, regardless if they're in the top 25 or not, because if you can put the ball in the post, Kofi Cockburn now leads the country in scoring. You got guys who can shoot the basketball. You pick your poison. And that's what Coach Underwood and his staff did. They put guys around Kofi who can shoot the ball. And giving him credit, he has more assists now than what he had last year. He's expanded his game. The little jump shot looks good. And I'm going to tell you, I saw it the first day of practice. Coach Jeff Alexander did a tremendous job with his free throws. So now you can't hack him anymore.
Right. And you're right. And let's stay on Kofi for a second there, because you are spot on when you talk about what Jeff has done, taking over for what Orlando has done. Kofi's free throw shooting is off the charts. It looks so much better than it did last year. I would talk to Jeff often, and he would be like, Deon, it's just little things. It's a few little things. And I agree with him 100%. When I would see Kofi shoot, it's just a few little things. And he has definitely made those corrections. But man, has the big fella not expanded his game? Did you see the 2 jab step, pull up, jump shot in the game the other day? Barnhart looked over at me and was like, oh my God, he looked like a young Deon Thomas. I was like, I'll take that. I wish I was as big as he is. I might
no kidding.
But you look at him, and I saw him when he first hit campus. I don't think a lot of people understand the work that this young man has put in, not just on the court, but what he's put into his body. I mean, Kofi came in here at almost 300 pounds, and he quickly, with the help of Coach Fletch, lost about 25 pounds and cut his body fat into the single digits. Can you've seen him. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw as he continued to develop and grow to be I think the player of the year this year?
You know what? Yeah, that's a good point. When you watch him on TV, he's a big guy. But when you watch him in person now, you can see how lean he is. There's times when he got the ball this year on the elbow and tried taking the guy off the dribble. He wouldn't have done it before. Now he's confident enough because he's quick enough, and his twitch muscles are, they're starting to catch up with his mind, thinking, hey, I can do this a little bit. Because the one thing he wants to do, everybody wants to play in the NBA, and I get it. And the thing that they told him, they gave him a number of things. They told him, one, you have to become a better free throw shooter because you're going to get fouled and then we can't play it at the end of the game. You got to prove to us that you can shoot that mid-range jump shot, which he has. Then you got to show us you can put the ball on the floor. He's played 3 games or 4 games, and he's done that so far. Just, you give him another month or so, and I think people are really going to be surprised all the things that he can do. One-on-one, he's going to be a tough matchup because
Oh, yeah.
I remember his first year in college basketball, all he could do was dunk, which was great. But
Mhm.
me being a basketball nut and no life other than basketball and sports, I saw his sophomore year, Deon, that footwork start to work. I saw the drop step. And the game to me that proved to me that Kofi Cockburn had arrived was last year in that Big Ten tournament. Luka Garza had owned Kofi. Kofi
Yeah.
returned that favor in the Big Ten tournament. He challenged him, he chessed him, and he did moves and things I had never seen before. Now it's easy for him. You know, he gets the ball in the post. If like I thought he was tired against Notre Dame, I think they wore him down a little bit, but he can score well. He's shooting 67% from the field. How do you guard that? And then, like I said earlier, you foul him, he's going to make free throws, and now he's looking to pass. I really hope the guy gets a chance at the next level. I know the NBA is a different game, but there's a spot for that kid somewhere, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree 100%. And but the thing that the game has kind of shifted so much, but I think what he's doing, he's showing that they're, being able to extend the jump shot, being able to put the ball on the floor from that free throw line area. I believe also having showed that he's a better all ball defender in the pick and roll. I mean, let's think about that last game against Notre Dame. He got switched up on a guard out front and kept the guard in front of him.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and I commented to Brian about that. I'm like, whoa. I was like, the big fella kept him in front. And that's what you want your big guys to do. So looking at his development from those standpoints, I agree with you. There is a spot for him in the NBA. And if not, that kid's going to make a ton of money somewhere in this world. And
Yes,
that's
he is.
really the important part, because you know me, I just want him to graduate, get his degree, and make sure that he sets himself up to be able to do what he wants to do and not what he has to do. But before we move on, I want to take a step back and talk about this, because I also don't believe a lot of people understand the difficulties in replacing a leader. Because I think that right now, that's the Achilles heel with this Illinois team. Would you agree with that or no?
Man, it's like you've been reading my mind all day and for the last few months. Here's why I think Io shoots. I don't even want to say it's a clutch making shot. Io was a much better defender than what people give them credit for. When I mentioned earlier, the one concern I had with this team was defense. They're getting broken down on top too easy,
Yeah.
and that is a concern for me. I do know DeMonte was sick, and I know Trent's not 100% healthy, but Io was a good on the ball defender. He played good help defense, and when Coach Underwood made a comment to me a couple years ago, and in order to win in the Big Ten anywhere, you have to defend and you have to hold teams to under 40% or 42% shooting from the field. If you're going to let teams shoot 50, 55% from the field at home and on the road, it's a recipe for a loss. And that's where I think they miss Io. I think they miss Io at times when things were going bad, not just because he was clutch, but another part that he did do from an offensive standpoint, he led the country in fast break points.
Mhm.
And my understanding, he was averaging 11.9 points a game on fast break points. So
Yeah.
having said that, that's gone now. And you have to replace that. So that's why I think a lot of pressure's on Cabello. I think he knows it. And that's why I think he tried to do what he tried to do at Marquette. But they're going to have to find a way to get those fast break points because you want to widen the gaps. You don't want to get a 12-point lead and then let teams come back on you like they did the other night. Io didn't allow that.
Yeah, not one of the things I look at is we've expanded our length and size on the wings, but we don't have that guy that runs the floor like Ayo DeSumo did. But one of the things that he did, and that I believe is a big missing piece right now, we don't have that guy to hold people accountable. Io held people accountable on the team for doing what it was that they need to do. I remember hearing the story, and I wasn't at practice. Maybe you were there that one of those days when, and I don't know why I'm drawing a brain fart. Went to Morgan Park, now at LSU, and I love the kid. And here I am forgetting his name.
Oh,
Transferred.
Adam Miller?
Adam Miller. So thank you, Kendrick. So one of the practices going on, ball's on the floor. Adam doesn't hit the floor. First person over to him wasn't coach, wasn't one of the assistant coaches. It was Io. And Io was like, "Hey, you want to play here? you want to be successful here, you got to be one of the first guys on the floor to get the ball. And that would translate over to the court. No, Ayo wasn't a yeller or a screamer or one of these guys that would grab you up in your collar, but he would hold guys accountable. We don't have that right now, or no one, that person has not emerged just yet. Would you agree with that? And if so, who do you think that guy should be? I mean, I have it in my mind, and I don't mind discussing it. But who do you think would be that fit?
Well, I want to give Ayo credit for this. Watch a Bulls game. He does it with the Bulls. He's a rookie. I watch him in Bulls game to do that, which is a trait of his, which is why they like him. The guy that I think, and I hope it's the same guy, but if it's not, we can talk about it. I think it should be DeMonte Williams. I think DeMonte, because he's been around, and I think he's wise. And I mean, he's not going to score 30 points a game. He knows what's going on the court. He knows where people should be at. Coach Underwood loves him. And there's a reason he likes him. And he's always going to play, whether he gets 20 points or he gets 9 or 0, because he's going to defend and rebound. I don't think it's in Trent's nature. I don't think it's ever been in Trent's nature. I think Trent's a guy that can lead by scoring and defending. I don't know if that's his calling card. But if I had to pick a wild card, and I don't want fans to freak out, Luke Goody's not bad either. Because that kid, watch him. He will get kids. The other night, he had a great block, and it was a clean block. And everybody in the stands was booing. He grabbed every one of those kids at the free throw line, and you could read his lips. That's over with. We got to do this. So I like one of those two guys, but I'm kind of curious to see who you like.
Well, the unfortunate side of that is most people won't allow a freshman to step in there. But I agree with you 100%. I saw that. Another thing that I saw was on that tie up when he and the big guy was fighting for the ball, and everybody ran over there, and he calmed everyone else down. So his future is bright being in that position. DeMonte, I also love that thought, because I think DeMonte can be that guy, because everyone knows and does not question his toughness. They don't question his love for this team or for the game, or his understanding, like you said, of where everyone needs to be. Some people might look down on my choice in this, and they may look down on it. I was a big guy too. And so we have to wait on guys to get us involved and bring the ball in and this and this. But that doesn't change the fact that I know on our team, I was definitely one of our leaders. And we had a kind of a Batman Robin kind of duo the way we led. But I think Kofi is the one that can step up. And again, doesn't have to be a yeller or a screamer, but when guys are getting flustered and falling out, because he's your best player, he could be that guy to be like, hey, okay, we got to galvanize around this. And then that Robin, or that 1A, 1B, or however you want to put it, is DeMonte. So that's kind of the way I saw it. And I think, everyone would listen to Kofi, not just because he's the biggest guy on the court.
Yeah.
Doggone good reason to listen to him, because if he grabs somebody, he might hurt you. He might unintentionally hurt you. But when your best player steps up, and he's the one that's really following with Coach. I mean, if you remember down in San Antonio, that was the first thing Pop said. Pop was like, we go because Tim buys into what we're doing. When I get on Tim, he's the first one to get on someone else. And he was the best player on that team. He wasn't the flashiest. That would have been a Manu Ginobili or a Tony Parker or somebody with the flashier player. But it was him, because he was the calming effect for everyone on that team. It wasn't a yeller or a screamer. And I think that's why the big fella would be prime. But I do love DeMonte stepping in that, because nobody's going to question his toughness, his heart, and his understanding of what Coach Underwood wants. So before we move on to the next topic, big fella, let me read. I got to get to my sponsor reading. So let me tell you guys a little bit about my partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up for Bet Rivers yet, now's the time, because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. With basketball season in flow, get into action by going to betrivers.com today or download BetRivers iOS app. You must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, Big Fella, appreciate you letting me get through that. But moving on, we talked a little bit about how the nation has kind of gone down on Illinois. We talked about how Illini Nation has been a little tough on Cabrillo, and you know this, and I think you'll agree with me on this. When teams go through adversity, they do nothing but get better and they grow.
Oh, I'll tell you this right now. Coach Underwood was sending a subliminal message the other day about how soft his team was because he wanted them to know. And if you go back to watch any games that Brad Underwood has coached since he was at Illinois, even when they've struggled and lost all those games, more games than any team in the history of Illinois basketball, they got better down the stretch, Deon. You look at last year, they got better down the stretch. When they played Ohio at home, it was a game that they could have lost. They got better. They went to Wisconsin, a place they never went at. Then they went to Ohio State and they won there. They went, they won the Big Ten tournament. This is why I don't panic because I know they're going to get better. I know the team will eventually become healthy. They will gel. And if I had to pick one guy, and I mean, I love watching Alfonso Farmer shoot the basketball. I think that's awesome. But I think if there was one guy, a key guy that's going to keep this team and make them advance in the tournament, I think it's Omar Payne, the development of Omar Payne. They are going to need him. He is slowly starting to come on defensively. He's not getting a lot of minutes. I don't know if it's fatigue or I know the other day, Coach in the Notre Dame game, Coach Underwood said he felt comfortable with Kofi. But I think if you have an athletic guy like Omar, he looks really good, Deon, in the early days in practice. But if they could ever develop him and he can get them maybe 8 points and 6 rebounds a game, Kofi can get a break because I don't know if he's going to be able to last playing 30 minutes a game through the rest of the season. And I think he is the key to the long-term success of this team.
Yeah, the depth at that center position is going to be important. Benjamin Verdonk, Bosman Verdonk has come in and really given some great energy. Had those 2 big rebound games. He's a guy that could make up for some of that. I do agree with and love Omar Payne, man. I think Florida did this young man a disservice. They did not help him. They did not help him get better. And that's sad because when I talk to the coaches, like you just mentioned, the kid works his butt off in practice. He has been so attached to Adam Fletcher since he's gotten there to improve his body in the weight room. And he looks different than when he stepped foot on campus, in the beginning. So if he continues to listen to Coach Jeff Alexander, which I'm sure he will, and now you bring in someone like Tim Anderson that's used to developing NBA guys, he will do nothing but get better. Those 2 guys are going to be key for us, but I'm loving the development of our freshmen. Our freshmen have looked so good right now. You mentioned Goody. RJ Melendez has looked excellent as well. And I think Pods, playing in Wisconsin is totally different than playing college basketball and in the Big Ten. And let's just be honest about it. He's going to pick up. He's a natural scorer. How do you feel about the development of the freshmen? What do you see out of those guys that really has you connecting to them as they move forward?
When the season started, the one guy I fell in love with right away was RJ Melendez. I just thought he was much more versatile. He was a little bit more athletic than the other 2 guys. I like what he brought to the table. I went to his videos. I watched some of his games live, and I just really thought, from a shooting standpoint, taking the ball off the dribble, he was good. But the Warrior and the group, and I've always thought this was a goodie. Kid played football before. He's tough. His parents and his grandparents and his uncles, they played football at Notre Dame, Indiana and Northwestern. And the thing I liked about his dad, when I interviewed him one time, he was like, "Mr. Prince, I'm going to tell you, we don't back down from a challenge in my house. If my son commits to Illinois, he will graduate from Illinois. He is never leaving. He's never going to transfer unless something drastic happened where I didn't have a choice. But the bottom line is, I loved his mentality because Luke is a tough kid. He's a strong kid, and the kids love him. And if you want to get on the court for Brad Underwood as a freshman, you have to defend, and he does. I think right now Brandon Podziemski is in a numbers game. He's in a tough spot. I just hope he hangs on. I hope he doesn't, think, hey, this isn't for me because he's not getting the minutes because the kid can score. You got to remember, a lot of kids are in this situation because of the super seniors, and those guys are going to be gone next year. And so being in the system is going to help him get on the court more. I love the freshman class. I'm not just saying that because that's a politically correct thing to say. I think if you look at the recruits that they have coming in, you look at the wings and guards, and now they got a big man. Now you have wings to go with it. So that's why I think they should be patient. And, they are going to get their chance because coach didn't bring them in to sit them on the bench. I mean, let's face it, Brandon Podziemski, it is different at Wisconsin, but this kid put up a lot of points. Luke Goody can shoot it. They all can shoot it. And that's the thing that I like about all of them.
Yeah, and they bring their own talents, but the toughness and the mental toughness that Goody has shown so far is impressive. And like you said, part of that is because he played football, because he was a quarterback, he has all of that already in him from having to go through and bang your head out there on the football field. But
that's right.
The way he was raised, like he said, his dad said, "We don't quit. This is what we do." So that's a great thing to hear. And RJ Melendez, man, my buddy was his assistant coach down in Florida, and I called him. I'm like, "Hey, Brad, tell me a little bit about this kid." He was like, "Deon." He was like, "He's a pro." He was like, "He's a hard worker." He was like, "You're going to be surprised by his athleticism and the skill that he has." And he has shown it, man. And, with his length, he's going to be really good. So we got 3 really good freshmen to go along with, some guys that are, may still be around, but like you mentioned, that super seniors kind of hurt him a little bit. But we have 3 dogs coming in next year too.
Yes, sir.
Man, and I know you cover Illinois recruiting, a heck of a lot better than I do. But I'll tell you this: I love Ty Rogers. Man, I think he is a Brad Underwood type kid, and that brings a lot more from a skill standpoint than even I knew that he had. Can you talk a little bit about the 3 kids that are coming in: Rogers, Epps, and Harris?
Well, I would tell you right now, Ty Rogers looks like a 21-year-old man right now. He is put together. He is going to play as a freshman. I don't want people to freak out and think, okay, Kendric, you're losing your mind here. But when I see a kid like him, I see a young Kenny Battle. Because here's what I see, Deon. His vertical leap is unreal. And the fans are used to seeing those lob dunks go to Kofi. You're going to see those lob dunks go to Ty Rogers. This kid can jump out of the gym. He's put together strong. And he takes pride in defense. There was times during the AAU season, he would argue with his coaches on who to guard. He knew who the best player was, and coaches would have different matchups. Didn't matter to him. His thing was to guard the best player, and that was it. This past weekend, he played over in Decatur. He's unselfish. He had a triple-double once, and a lot of people were saying that he could have easily scored 30 a game. He just didn't do it because he's not one of those kind of guys. He's a Brad Underwood everyday guy, like you mentioned, but his athleticism, and he was a steal. And I want people to really get this. Think about where the program was before Underwood took over the recruiting. Brad Underwood beat Michigan, Michigan State, and Memphis for this kid. And the kid is originally from Michigan. That tells you where Illinois basketball is right now. And they're continuing to continue to build and get players. Jay Neps is a guard. He's to me, a Trent Frazier guard with more of a scores mentality. When Chester Frazier, Chester Frazier told me when he got the job, there was one kid he wanted because that kid can score. He's listed at 6'2", but I think he's probably more 6 foot tall, but he can shoot it beyond. He's strong. At one point this season, he was leading the country in scoring in high school. He was averaging 42 a game. And I don't care. And then he moved to a different school to get better competition. So it's not like he was doing it against people that couldn't walk and chew gum. I love Sincere Harris. I think Sincere Harris to me is a younger version of Luther Head. When you watch him play, he can get to the basket, he can shoot it, and everybody that Brad Underwood recruits, every single kid now can shoot it. And when he was successful, Stephen F. Austin, that's what he had. You talked about the 3 freshmen on the roster right now, they can shoot it. All 3 of these guys can shoot it, and they can all defend. So I like this group that they have. And Deon, you have to give credit when you go and you compete against Arizona, like I said, Michigan, or North Carolina, and you beat some of these kids. Jay Epps was going to go to Kansas, and he committed to Illinois. That tells you where the program is right now. It's in a good place, and the coaches are doing a tremendous job of recruiting these guys, and they want to be there. Illinois has put themselves back on the map, and you can clearly see it with recruiting. And not jumping the gun here, there's a 23 kid who's a point guard named Jeremy Fierce Jr. Watch out. There's not enough adjectives I can use to describe this kid. I'll give you one: win, and that's all that matters to him. Losing is not an option for him, Deon. It's just not.
There you go. That's that leadership I'm talking about, man. I had the opportunity, to meet his dad when on campus one time, and you could see where he gets that fire from. Dad was a ball player, and they just simply carried that thing over. This transfer portal has been crazy. It's been a little weird for people, and it's going to be a little weird till we get this thing going. But we have, in my opinion, our staff has done a great job and hit it out of the park with Omar Payne, of course, with the shooting of Alfonso Plummer, and just this kid's mentality. Love it. And we're doing it again with Danger. I guess you pronounce it.
Danger. Yep, that's it.
Man, when I saw that kid's skill level, I was wondering what the heck was were they thinking down there in Texas that kid could not play as much as he should have. Can you tell a little bit about him? Because I know you've talked to him, but I know we've only had a chance to glimpses of the video. What can you tell us about him?
Well, he grew up in Chicago. For people who don't know, the family. He did. He grew up in Chicago, and he moved. His parents were Illinois fans. He mentioned that to me last week when I interviewed him, and then they moved to Minnesota. And at the time, his parents were, they were watching Illinois, but let's face it, Baylor they were elite, and when they came calling, he jumped at it, and he told me, this is what I thought was really unique. Even when he was at Baylor, his parents would call and talk about Illinois. They watched the games, and he watched the games. He strictly came to Illinois because of what Illinois has done with Kofi Cockburn and what he did with Georgie. And he saw that. He saw opportunities. And you're right, when you look at his film, and when Fletch gets done with him, Baylor's going to regret letting him go. And I feel bad for saying that, but I guess it's a game for Illinois, because here's what he can do. He can put it on the floor. He's a big kid, and he can finish and shoot it, and not just 1 or 2 times a game. He's going to be a nightmare matchup in Underwood's system. I love the fact, like you mentioned, that they're doing a great job, Deon, in this transfer portal. And now you have kids who want to be there. Here's what is really unique about him. He was on his visit last week. Michigan State called him 8 times, begging him not to commit. 8 times. And you go to his Twitter page, he mentioned the word "respect my decision." That's what that was pointing toward. He's home.
Wow.
And he said he was home. That's when Illinois is winning these battles. Michigan State wanted him to visit before he committed, and he told them, "I'm at home and I'm not leaving."
Wow. Wow. And you're, oh my gosh, that just got me excited, man.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Oh boy, because when we lost 3 really really good coaches, and this is let me start off by saying this. I remember when I took the job at UIC, and I was sitting down talking to Howard Moore at the time, and Howard was like, "Man, Deon," he was like, "if you ever step into a head coaching position, be sure to nail down your staff." And that stuck with me. How important your staff is. People don't understand how, because they think assistant coaches only recruit or do these things. They don't understand how important assistant coaches are. We lost 3 lights out assistant coaches. What did Brad do? It's almost like he just reloaded with, in my opinion, maybe even a better
All around, yes.
all around coaching staff with Jeff Alexander, Tim Anderson, and of course Chester Frazier, because those guys are just knocking it out of the park. And let's not leave out Tyler Underwood, because Tyler is the one that's scouring this transfer
Oh yeah,
in his new position.
he's sneaky good. Tyler is sneaky good.
Yes, he'll be coaching his own team one of these days, man. And those guys are really knocking it out of the park. You've been around the staff. People have heard me talk about them. Tell me what you think about this staff.
Here's what I like what you just said. They're all unique. And I'm not one of these guys to say, you know what, I live in the moment. I love Orlando. We're still friends. We talk, we wish each other happy Thanksgiving, Father's Day, all those things. The reason this staff I think is better is they are all getting it done, not just one guy. If you look at that roster right now, at the Illinois roster, that's mostly Orlando Antigua. I mean, let's face it, Kofi, RJ Melendez, Brendan Pajemski, even though Chin came in late with that one, Andre Cabello, those are his kids. And now you look at the roster, I mentioned Jay Epps and Cecilia Harris, those are Chesters. You look at Ty Rogers, that is Tim Anderson. The transfer, Dane Danger, that's Tim Anderson. The reason Kofi came back, ladies and gentlemen, you better tip your hat to Jeff Alexander. Jeff Alexander was the magic man to make that work. And the Spears kid that I talked about, that's Jeff Alexander's. So this staff, there's not just one dominant guy. There's all of them. And what I love about Coach Underwood, he allows his staff to coach and to teach. He's not a guy who just wants to be the dominant guy. I feel bad for watching KU Kentucky play right now. Orlando and Chin don't say anything. It's all Calipari. At Illinois, Brad Underwood didn't do that. When they have the game scout, he allowed them to coach. And that's what you were talking about. It's not just going out and recruiting. This staff is good because Brad makes them that way. He wants them to be under the Brad Underwood coaching tree, and he listens to them. I've never seen Brad disrespect any of his coaches when they make a suggestion. I tell fans this, and you can read between the lines. When they lost to Loyola last year, I know a couple of those coaches made suggestions. Kids didn't follow through with it, but Brad has to take the fall for it. At the end of the day, he is really good about picking guys that are intelligent and who know the game. And Chester being an alumni, it helps. And he loves and he's passionate. I'll tell you this, and I don't want to, rat the coach out, but one coach told me out of the 3 guys that are on staff right now, if they get a kid on campus, they're not letting them leave. They're going to make sure that there's a 99.9% chance that they're going to commit if they get them on campus. That's how confident they are with recruiting. I've never heard a coach say that to me before. And the coach that I'm talking about is batting 1,000 right now.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm excited about that. I love it. I want them all to be confident, because I think when you come in and you look at the basketball at Illinois, we are on the map and we're continuing to climb and get better. Every single recruiting class has been an improvement. If you look at from day one when coach stepped on campus, the next year we had 21 losses, the most in school history. Then we flipped that completely around and had a ton of wins. And what I believe was the quickest turnaround that I've seen, especially coming from where we were coming from. He turned us around in basically 2 seasons.
Yes,
and if it wasn't for COVID, we would have been a high seed in the Big Ten tournament, and I believe a high seed in the NCAA tournament, because we were rolling.
Yes.
We had a hiccup last year. This year's team, like you said earlier, and I agree with you, on paper right now is one of the best teams probably we've ever had at Illinois. Now it's going to take that time to gel and bring them together, because it's not like when I played, when you could be in the gym all day, every day with your players and you had that time to get better. They have limited amounts of time that they can do it. They have to give
20
days
yards.
off.
Yep.
Yeah, they have to give days off and all of these other things that just wasn't around back in the day, which kind of slows that down. But we always get better down the stretch. So I'm expecting this team to continue to do that. Recruiting is up and off the charts, and a lot of that goes to, as you said, to Brad Underwood and his leadership. But when you get those kids on campus, you look at the basketball, when you get the parents on campus and they walk around and they get to see that beautiful campus, that's Chancellor Jones and President Colleen, and how beautiful everything is on that campus, how our alum are so tied in at every level, whether those kids go pro or not. We got the second or third largest alumni association in the world. There are just so many positives that I know those coaches express, to recruits, and they hit campus. So yeah, 99.9. I'm with that, K.
You know what? I want to piggyback off something that you said. Corey Irvin, she's on the women's basketball staff, and I did an article about her in my newspaper about 2 months ago. And one of the quotes that she gave me, I used all the time, and it's kind of like what you said. Her husband, anybody know anything about the Irvins in Illinois? You know they're legends when it comes to basketball, high school basketball. Her husband, she married an Irvin, and when she got the Illinois job, Deon, her husband came down there. He had been there. I think last time he was in Champaign, she said it was 12 years ago, and she was honest. He was pushing kids to go to other schools, and she made a comment to me when he walked into the State Farm Center. He was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." And then Coach Faye said, "Exactly. You're one of the problems that we have with the entire state. People don't know how beautiful Illinois is. They don't know how beautiful the State Farm Center is. They don't know the renovations that are being made. And getting those people on campus to see that is amazing, because it is a beautiful campus. And athletic director Josh Whitman is going to make sure that they're first class and that the facilities won't be a reason why they lose recruits. So getting these kids down here and seeing the campus and walking around the quad and the football games and State Farm Center, it is awesome. It really is. Whether you're an Illinois fan or not, it's very, very nice.
It is. It's I'm proud. I'm a proud alum. I bleed orange, as I tell everybody. But Josh and the leadership that he's shown and what we are doing on campus and have done on campus, you have to take your hat off to him, and Chancellor Jones, of course, who's over athletics. Howard Milton and those other guys that are in our office that are doing great things to put those buildings up, because kids want to see that. That's a sign of where you're going. And we have put, I think it's like 6 or 7 buildings up and renovated,
Yeah.
just in the past few years. So campus is growing and it's beautiful. So I appreciate you for pointing that out. But Kay, I always like to do this and give my guests the last minute to say to Illini Nation whatever it is that they want to say. The mic is yours. Go ahead, big fella.
Well, thank you for giving me that opportunity and having me as a guest, number one. And I will say this, and it's kind of brief and it's a powerful statement. Illinois is in a good place. It really is. You have a basketball coach who works hard at it. You have assistant coaches who work hard at it. And I love the fans. One of the recruits told me, I'll just say it was the Fierce kid and his father. They're just amazed at the support. And one of the reasons he's interested in Illinois is because what you said, the large alumni base and the love that they give and they support the university. Illinois fans are, to me, like Kansas, Kentucky, and North Carolina and Duke. Those programs have had more success lately, but the Illinois fans are right there with them. And I applaud you guys, the people who follow me and the people who follow you and who love the University of Illinois. It is in a good place. And right now, it's a great time to help these kids out and to get that, whether it be financially, whether it be getting in the stands to help these kids out. It's a really good time to be an Illinois fan.
Well, KP, I appreciate you. Illini Nation, for those that are not already following Kendric Prince, make sure you go on Twitter. He's at Kendric Prince 4. And also follow the Illini Guys Sports. Kendrick is their guy. He's on there doing their recruiting and writing and so forth. You have to follow these. This is some really great in-depth information from a great journalist and a friend. So KP, I appreciate you coming on, man. And for those that are not following the Field of 68, please follow them. They have great content covering the 68 top programs in the country. So if you're listening to me, always like and subscribe, of course. And if you're not listening to me, you better get to listening to me now. But we want to make sure that we keep bringing the best, and we cannot do that if it's not for our partners over at Bet River Sportsbook. I want to tell them how much I appreciate them and thank them for sponsoring this podcast so I can share great guests like Kendrick and others with Illini Nation. So we're going to close it out. And Illini Nation, as I always say, peace, love, and